There was just a major free speech victory in Kentucky. A lot to break down today. Chelsey and Brian, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
So, Chelsey, let's just dig right into this. You filed the lawsuit against Louisville-Jefferson County in 2019. And tell us a little bit about what led to that lawsuit.
Yeah, well, I was a young mom trying to figure out a business that I could do to have flexibility, raise a family, have a creative outlet. And obviously I'm a Christian, so that impacts every aspect of my life, not just on Sunday morning when I'm at church, right? Absolutely everything. And I was very aware at the time of people like Jack Phillips in the news under fire for just trying to quietly operate their business in a way that was consistent with their Christian convictions. And I was concerned about, if I am going to do this, I'm going to do it in a way that's consistent with my faith. Is that going to get me in trouble? Just trying to be wise and discerning, looking forward as I grow, as that's become maybe more well known. Do I have anything to worry about? And I became aware of this ordinance in Louisville, and was really concerned that I might be under $10,000 fines at any moment for being, reported if I were just simply open about what messages I'm willing to celebrate, marriage between a man and a woman for a lifetime only and nothing outside of that. So that's really what brought me to this whole 6-year-long litigation journey.
Was there ever an attempt to actually fine you? Because I know that the fear of it alone impacts how you operate your business, just so people understand that, you have this law, this regulation, you're trying to operate your business as a Christian, you're fearful about what you say and what you do. Did you hit a point where you thought, or you did experience that sort of retribution?
So the way that I approached it is that I hadn't received a direct threat yet, but I knew that it was likely, especially because I'm not quiet about my faith. I'm outspoken about it. I celebrate it. And so anyone who knew about me and my business hopefully would attach my faith to it. It wasn't just going to be like a sub item to my business. And so what I decided to do was proactively seek clarification. Just be like, this is exactly what I would like to put on my website so everyone knows where I stand and what I believe. Can I do that? And ultimately they came back essentially and said, no, you can't do that. In fact, you can't even talk to clients like in a client meeting at Starbucks about, oh, well, I can celebrate this message, but not that. And here's why.
Well, and I mean, by having it on your website, it essentially doesn't waste your time. It doesn't waste other people's time. You're putting it out there. This is what I represent. This is who I am. And, you're welcome to go somewhere else if you don't like that, right? I mean, it actually helps everybody instead of being in the awkward conversation where you're now telling somebody no once they've come to you. Brian, can you take us through, help us understand what this particular regulation says so that we understand, just sort of like the legal aspects around it and what concerned you most about it?
Sure. Well, the fundamental premise of Chelsey's lawsuit is that the government can't force Americans to say something they don't believe. And Louisville passed a law that it interpreted to require Chelsey to create photographs and blogs celebrating a view of marriage that contradicted her faith. And the law had two different features. One, it compelled her to create speech that violated her beliefs. But as you mentioned, it also prohibited her from even putting on her own website, this is my Christian beliefs, this is what I believe about marriage, and I only create photographs and blogs consistent with that belief. And Louisville said that both of those things, declining to create a message about marriage that violates her beliefs or even explaining that belief publicly, would violate its law. And I'll just note, this is a case similar to a Supreme Court case that was announced in 2023, 303 Creative versus Alanis. There are laws like Louisville's across the country that compelled artists to create artwork that violated their religious beliefs. And in 2023, the Supreme Court said that those laws, when they're used when they're applied to speech, violate the First Amendment. And Judge Beaton in Chelsey's case followed that binding precedent and reached the result he did here.
It's interesting, and I think a lot of people will ask this question. When you have a Supreme Court case like 303 Creative, why is it that that case does not solve all of these issues, right? I mean, that's the question that people who don't understand law might ask, like, well, why are we still having these court battles and discussions about compelling speech when we've had those victories at the Supreme Court? Brian, how would you respond to that question?
Well, I think a couple of days after the Supreme Court announced its decision, the mayor of Louisville got on NPR and explained that his city will continue to fight and defend its law against Chelsey's lawsuit. And so I'm not sure what motivates that decision. But for sure, the principles that were announced in 303 Creative and that the Supreme Court has relied on for decades support the principle that a photographer who creates an image that promotes a particular idea, emotions, those kinds of things, the government can't use laws to compel a photographer to create an image that contradicts their faith. And that's well established in First Amendment principles.
So Chelsey, coming back to you on this, obviously this was a years-long battle that you chose to proactively fight, and you were told that you would not be able to post these kinds of messages that explained who you are, what you stand for on your website. What was the reaction like? How did you deal? Because whenever you are in a legal battle like this, a lot comes with that. You have supporters, you have detractors. How did you deal with that element of this case?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it was really difficult at first. People I thought were friends, thought were fellow believers, essentially disowned me for trying to seek clarity in this and standing for what I believe the Bible is not quiet about, but very loud and clear about. So that part was difficult. I think what was less difficult is that I don't expect people who aren't Christians to understand everything that I believe or even to agree with it. What I wish more of them would understand is that I'm actually fighting for their right to create consistent with their beliefs, even though it's a separate worldview and belief system from my own. So that was difficult, but in the end, the Lord helped me grow a very thick skin, and he really used my children as a motivation. Like my witness to my children is very important to me. I would hate for them to grow up and look back and see that their mom cowered on this issue because she feared man more than she fears God. So that was an incredible inspiration to me. And I'll be grateful, hopefully, when one day they actually know what's been going on these past 6 years, which they know nothing about at the moment. That their mom was faithful.
So, okay, Brian, coming back to you on the legalities of this, can you talk about why this is a significant victory at the district court? And does it end here? Is it possible that this continues? Take us through sort of where we are right now on this.
Sure. It's a significant decision for a couple of reasons. The first one is that the district court here in Kentucky did a great job of explaining why photography is speech. So every time that Chelsey takes a photograph, she's composing the subject matter. She's thinking about things like lighting, tone, cropping, all those kinds of things to create a specific image that people cherish for a lifetime. So that's one reason. The other reason is that what the district court said is that during the period of time that Chelsey refrained from speaking because of the credible threat posed by Louisville's law, she is entitled to a remedy called nominal damages, which is a recognition that Louisville violated Chelsey's rights by chilling her speech. And nominal damages are a way to hold governments accountable when they violate constitutional rights. And then the final point is that the district court permanently enjoins, meaning permanently prevents Louisville from enforcing its law against Chelsey to compel her to create a message that violates her belief or to restrict her from saying things that are consistent with her beliefs. In terms of what's next, Louisville does have an opportunity to appeal this decision. Although with 303 Creative as the binding authority, we feel very confident that we would win an appeal because 303 Creative, again, addressed a law that was very similar to Louisville's. And the Supreme Court said, full stop, that governments can't use these kinds of laws to compel speech.
How does this victory affect other people, Brian, in terms of, obviously we're talking about one individual case here. Does this win mean that others also will not be able to be or forced to be compelled to put a message out they disagree with?
Well, I think of law as kind of like building blocks. And so the 303 Creative decision is the foundation for this principle. And it relied on case law extending back into the 1940s. And of course, it's clear from the text of the First Amendment, which says that government shall not abridge speech. But Chelsey's case is another building block on top of that. So 303 Creative applied to website designers. Chelsey's case and another case like hers called Emily Carpenter versus James applies to photographers. And so what you see is that the law is clarifying what speech is. So it's not only words and text, but it's also things like photographs and images that promote a particular view.
Chelsey, coming back to you as we close here, what's your message to other Christians who may find themselves in similar battles? Maybe they're afraid to fight the battle. Maybe they feel trapped. What would you say to them after 6 years of fighting for this?
Yeah, I would say start with daily faithfulness in your life, in your family. Standing up in a broader context with, news headlines or whatever, that all starts with being faithful to the Lord in your family, how you treat your spouse, how you're being faithful in parenting your children, interacting with your community. If you're a high schooler on your basketball team and you're feeling pressure about being a Christian, standing up for your beliefs in a loving way. And the Lord uses all of those experiences to prepare you for the good works that he has for you. And that the Lord's redemptive plan is going off without a hitch at all times. And that he's going to use everything in your life to help you build perseverance and character. And that honoring the Lord, even when it's difficult, even when there is a personal cost to it, to have an eternal mindset. Is the Lord going to say, well done, when you see him face to face? Are you going to be feeling ashamed or regretful at the end of your life for not standing up for your faith? I say do that no matter what the cultural winds are at the time, and surround yourself with strong believers who are going to hold you accountable to that.
All right, final question, Chelsey, for you. And then, Brian, if there's anything else you want to say after, feel free to jump in. But will you continue fighting this if there is an appeal? Let's say they decide to continue their battle against you on this.
Absolutely. Without a doubt. No. This is a ride or die situation for me. I want to honor the Lord in this area. I want to protect free speech for everyone. And I'm grateful that the Lord's used this case in so many ways, even though it's taken a lot longer than I ever would have anticipated. I'm hopeful that we can take the win and move on and turn the page.
Well, I want to thank you both for coming on, breaking this down. It's an important story, and appreciate your courage in standing up the way that you have. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much.